Hello there, everybody. It's about 2:30 here, just in the morning. We just got back from the beach, took the dogs for a walk. It was real nice. Tide was going out, very low breeze. But to get straight to the point of the video today, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I perceive the Russian mindset to be. Because if we really honestly take a look at ourselves and ask ourselves how much we really know about the Russian mindset, I think you'll find the answer is not much. And I think there's a number of reasons for this. You know, back in the day, especially after World War II, Russia was very culturally sort of isolationist. The competing ideologies in a bipolar world were of serious concern, just because everybody had gone through this major war. I think if you look at Russia as far as geography dictating a people's mentality, it's vast terrain that doesn't have very many natural barriers to entry. They've actually expanded their terrain to areas that are going to give them natural boundaries. The desert to the south that separates the Russia and China, for example, or getting as far east as Ukraine, Crimea, until you're right there in the what is it, the Black Sea, Baltic Sea, something like that. I'll have to look that up. And the entire country is crisscrossed with rivers. And Russia has been invaded so many times throughout history because of this geography. I mean, the Vikings invaded, the Japanese, there was a war between Russia and Japan. Napoleon did it. The Romans did it. The Ottoman Empire has done it. Now Turkey, present-day Turkey. Hitler, let's not forget, Hitler did it. So the Russians have a very, from my perspective, a very defensive mindset. And I can't think of many times, I can't think of any major historical examples off the top of my head, because I'm not an expert, and I'm just going through trying to review what I know so I can find out, what I need to learn. Or I think I know, I might be totally wrong about. They don't have very many wars of aggression. Or, none specifically that I can recall. Now, Stalin did this big ethnic cleansing. And everybody says he's just a mass murderer and all this type of thing. Well, Stalin didn't do it because he was a maniac. He did it because, well, he was a maniac, but he did it because what he was trying to do was get rid of other cultures that he perceived kind of threatened his government, his people's way of life. And there was a massive resettlement of people after World War II. He put them on trains and moved the peasantry around and did ethnic cleansing along those natural borders, like the desert near China, like I'm talking about, and the Siberian people and some of the Indian tribes and things up there. So that was all done so he could create a Russian state, where everybody spoke the same languages, everybody had the same sort of outlook, same religion. That's why they had, kind of a security state for so long. They wanted to ensure that they had a culturally homogenous society. And the Russian peasantry for so long has kind of just put up with whatever. They put up with a lot of shit, and then all of a sudden, if they're upset, they really flip it over. And Russia's had its revolutionaries throughout history, and they've gone into exile, they've gone into gulags, and they've challenged, the czars and oligarchical systems, and you know, they've tried to follow Karl Marx's ideas of communism, because if you read Karl Marx's work, he presents it as if it is, the next evolution in human society. That's how he presents his argument. And there's some truth in it. I mean, personally, I think deep down, any individual that's part of a society doesn't really care about how their government operates, as long as you have a few principles intact. And these are the things that were in the Constitution, I say, and in the Bill of Rights. Just simply your right to bear arms, your right to life, liberty, and initially when John Locke said it, it was preservation and property, but they changed that to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Because, obviously you can't have ultimate property rights if people are represented in a government. If all people are together, you can't say that one specific man owns all rights to this one thing all the time, because it could be of detriment to the collective community. But the emphasis is really on freedom. The emphasis is on free exchange of ideas. The emphasis is on freedom of speech. The emphasis is on fair process, privacy, our due process, and having legal recourse, and being able to make and present your own arguments, and speaking truth. I think all people kind of inherently want this, unless they belong to theocracy or something. But and this is me being culturally biased, of course. I think it's a great idea, and I think Russians kind of feel the same way, and I think Europeans kind of feel the same way. I think Africans would probably feel the same way. Pacific Islanders would feel the same way. People want to be free. They want to just kind of do what they want to do without having any kind of harm come to themselves. And so ultimately, the fine print of what your governmental system is neither here nor there. Fighting about ideology it's pissing up a rope, because the ideology is probably going to change within a generation anyway, as young people come up with new ways of doing things, and they're going to do it that way. So you can do ethnic cleansing like Stalin did, to shore up his borders, because he was afraid of invasion, threats of invasion. And throughout history, we found that many I guess societal, or let me not say societal, the chief of the people, or the commander of the people, whether it be a dictator or, well, whatever, who's ever at the top, kind of tends to want to preserve a homogeny to the society. I mean, you could look at examples, through Ferdinand and Isabella in the Spanish Inquisition, because they felt threatened by the Muslims that were coming into Spain, and the Protestants that were popping up around there, and they wanted things to stay the same. They wanted things to be Catholic, so they just butchered everybody else. They saw a threat to their way of life. They butchered everybody else. You look at Sweden today, or recently, and Germany, the UK, France, most specifically Calais, and with the immigrants that came in there, they have such a very, very different culture that's patriarchal and tribalistic. It's very unfamiliar to the Europeans. And, when you become so culturally biased over a long period of time, and you're a peaceful person, you kind of think that everybody's kind of going to act peacefully. They're going to act like you would act. You put your own mindset, you put your own core beliefs, and you displace that, or put that on someone else in the hope or the thought that, they're not going to come in and rape your young girls. Well, that's not the case. That's not what happened in Sweden. That's not what happened in Germany. They had massive rape gangs come from Muslim countries because in their culture, there's theocratic culture. Women are subservient, and they, follow these, rules of modesty and all these other things. And if they're an infidel and they're non-Muslim women, then they're not part of their society. And essentially, they're more like chattel or dogs or animals. They're lesser creatures. And so it's okay. It's socially permissible for them to commit those crimes amongst their own people. There's no sort of being ostracized by their own people. Kind of like in America recently. I think Americans went so crazy during the communism versus capitalism fight that it was like capitalism was so important, that money was so important, that accumulation was so important, that free market and having money, it made it right because you were doing, you were following that system that was working, it was dominating the world. And as it progressed, things that were previously just absolutely impermissible, like greed, became acceptable. Oh, if you have a lot of money, then you can be a total dick. You can buy whatever. And it became less important to adhere to cultural norms that we all kind of agree to. And in the 80s, I remember somebody coined the expression, and it was in a movie. I forget what movie. Greed is good. Greed is good. And it's not. I mean, it completely friggin' destroys everything. And what do you exchange it for? What can you exchange your money for? You exchange your money for, a better meal than somebody else, a McMansion, swimming pool, flat screen TV. This is all shit that we can make anyway. Like, diamonds, they're not really that rare. They're just made to, the Beers Company makes you think they're rare by only releasing a limited amount. What makes gold so valuable? It's fucking, excuse my language, but it's just a shiny piece of metal, and it sits around in people's garages, in bars, and it's heartbreaking because as a bronzesmith, I wanted to work it and make that metal, that shiny, beautiful metal, be something instead of a bar sitting in a garage. What is it for? So they're going to say, oh, whoever has the most gold bars, they have all the value of everything. It makes no sense. It's nonsense. Personally, I like a money system. I believe in free trade. I believe in commerce. But you can't have all these things manipulated or arbitrary or anything. You need a safe, secure, equal, something like Bitcoin, for example, or a blockchain where it's much, much more difficult to hack. You don't have some centralized institutions, private institutions like the Federal Reserve, creating money just by punching numbers into a computer, or having high-frequency trading going on with these algorithms that are fighting back and forth over tenths of a second, or nanoseconds, or fractions of a nanosecond. That's, one computer is going to do better because it's closer to the exchange. Any kind of price discovery is destroyed The algorithms are not trying to discover what the true price is. The algorithms are designed to take advantage of speed of computing power in order to get more money. And it makes money worthless. Money is designed to help us assign value to things. So it's like, we need to know that when you go out and perform a job, like, you make a piece of art, or you write a book, or you cook a meal for someone, or you grow some vegetables, or, you take the time to go through school and you become a doctor and you advise people, give people advice on obtaining good health, or you're able to perform surgeries, or all sort of manner of different things. You want to know that you're being fairly rewarded for your experience, your knowledge, your effort, and it's not about just this perpetual gaming of the system. I mean, it's easy to game a system. I mean, we can cheat at video games all day long, but that takes the challenge out of it. It takes the fun out of it. And it makes it, quite frankly, boring, and you've broken the game. Some people, they're inherent cheaters. And that's the only way they can play the game is by cheating. And it just makes them suck, like, and then they get on, they play against somebody that's real, that can play, that's good, that doesn't cheat. They're gonna make them look like assholes. And that's a situation where we are now. It's like people that can do things and work hard and they have good spirit and good intentions and backbone and strength and honor. They're going to do a lot better than the cheaters that have tried to game the system. We need real valuations. You can't prop up equities markets and inflate the price of housing and or the housing prices and everything in order to keep equity in the house, in order to make people think that they have more money. Because what that does to my generation, they call it the lost generation, is because we are not going to pay for a house that's 60% overvalued, even though we can borrow money at an extremely low price. I mean, as far as interest goes, because number one, I personally have never borrowed money. I just don't fucking do it. I don't do it as a general principle. If I can't afford it, I don't buy it. And that allows me to be free. I don't have to make a car payment. I don't have to do any of that crap. And it makes me free. It makes me free to follow the choices that I want to follow and live the life that I want to live. And I can participate. I do work, yes, of course, to bring value to my community and to earn, things. And, I find a great deal of satisfaction in producing things and earning things and having some fair exchange. But I feel like the exchanges have gotten unfair. And that's not even laissez-faire capitalism. That's garbage. I mean, it's not even capitalism. It's fraud. That's what it is. It's fraud. So I was getting on to the Russian mindset, and I'm still trying to sort out what it is even that I'm thinking as an American. So it's quite difficult to try and put yourself in the mindset of the people of another nation. And I don't think that Russian people are interested at all in a war, period. Yeah, they've got a lot of tanks. Yeah, they've got a lot of planes. They got jamming technologies. They've got excellent, so they've got satellites. They've got they got nuclear weapons. They've got an expanded, well-trained military. It's not to invade anybody with it. It's because they're not going to get caught with their pants down again getting run roughshod over like that asshole Hitler did back in World War II. Just coming through and with that fascist nonsense and just killing the people. And over what? Over expansion of German territory, and again, sort of a homogenous move towards a homogenous culture, which meant ethnic cleansing. And I mean, Stalin in the initial part of World War II negotiated a a truce with Hitler, and he just hoped not even to deal with it. And the Americans too, in the very beginning, we didn't want to deal with it either, you know, because one thing about Europeans, and that's why the EU will fail, is they all have, very distinct cultures because of these geographical borders that I'm talking about. That define cultures and define regions, and that sort of cultural heritage is important to the community of the world. Once we can recognize that we're all human and there's challenges that we need to address as humans, first and foremost. We need to do the things that we agree on, and later on we can argue about the details or the nuances of things that we disagree about. Cooperation is, I hold the belief that cooperation is natural to humans, because otherwise we would not have survived and grown as a species like we have. We do that because we cooperate with one another so well. So it's natural for us to be social creatures. It's natural for us to be cooperative. So we have much more of an inclination to be cooperative than we do to go to war. Now, the European culture, I guess you could hearken it all the way back to the Romans. That sort of, the Roman and the Germanic people did conquer the Vikings. I mean, initially they were all conquerors. It was a very patriarchal society. They conquered and they controlled territory via, warfare. And there was only a select group of people that did this fighting, and they did it hand to hand, and the engagements were limited. And then, but by and by, to the everyday peasant, it's like whatever, really what changes for them. But now that we have this world that's changed in the past 30 years, with a computer playing such a big part in our lives, it's so much easier to track people. It's so much easier to apply all these little nuances of law that in the history of mankind it wouldn't have been important at all. It's just so important now to, collect this tax or collect this ticket, or, and they can electronically follow you all the way across the world so you comply with these little tiny, feels like an overwhelming burden to try and keep up with the processing power of a machine that continually is tracking you and treating you like a number in the machine. And humans, I mean, back when everything had to be recorded with pencil and paper, it made it so it was inefficient. Yeah, you had your con man and your con men and your grifters and all that stuff. It still hasn't changed. With the advent of the computer, it's easier than ever to commit crime, because they can do it. Criminals can do it from the comfort of their own home. They don't have to grift around the country. They can just go in, breach the security on a computer and take some more of those imaginary numbers and apply it to pieces of paper that they can put out of an ATM and get material goods. Here in the United States, we have all of the resources that are necessary to survive. We have all the institutions to build great new infrastructure, first-rate infrastructure. You think about all these, the water, and you're drinking, city water or something, and it's got, antidepressants in it and whatever amount of drugs, birth control and hormones and all these things that are not getting filtered out because it's a very Egyptian system. I mean, it goes through, it heats the water, it takes all the condoms out and everything, purifies it to a certain extent, gets the trash out of it, boils it so it's safe to drink, and sends it, the wastewater, out into the river, and the rest of it right back into the drinking supply. But it doesn't get rid of the chemicals. It's not because it's impossible. Think about Coca-Cola, for example. Coca-Cola has to deliver a consistent product every single time, right? Hey, they make Dasani and they make, other bottled waters. So if we need such chemically pure water to produce these products, why don't we just create these purification plants near our local communities and give people clean drinking water? Very simple, very possible. We have the materials to do it. Why not do it? I think that's something everybody can agree on. And if you're going to tell me no, why? Why? Here we live in the Sunshine State. I'm not going to, dog on FPL right now because it's Florida Power and Light, because they actually are making some moves towards some solar technology. But it's a Sunshine State. Why are we not putting up solar panels and running, because they're cheap, they're dirt cheap, and running this huge electrical grid? We could be selling power to Georgia. We could be selling power with the right transmission lines all over the place. And with the revenue that we'd have from selling the power, it could fund our educational systems. It could give us just top-notch everything. But, some private individual will ostensibly own that and just suck it all up like a tick or a sponge when it really belongs to the people. I mean, think about telecommunications, for example. My grandparents worked for Bell Atlantic. They did lay the telephone lines. They were, part of the pioneers when it came to bringing communications to the United States. Reliable phone service everywhere. You didn't always have that. Remember the rotary phones? I mean, you have to be at least 30 years old, I think, to remember a rotary phone. You don't have those anymore. Now you got a cell phone, which might work half the time or not. And what for? It's because after a certain point, it's people say, like, I continue to own this. But at that point, after so many years of the telecommunications stuff being in the ground, we can just say, why not now? It's been paid for so many times over. Why are we going to let somebody continue to charge us when there's nothing being put back into the system for using these utilities, these public utilities? So just make it free or make it cheap or whatever it costs to maintain it. Don't, like the radio. Why do we have to, go from having a perfectly great radio that can support a lot of different stations, and they fill it full of ads, so it sounds like crap, and they play the same junk over and over and over again. So then you had to buy CD tapes, or your 8-track, or your record. Then you had to buy your 8-tracks. Then they converted everything to CDs, and then mini discs, and then to MP3, and then, to your... And then you got to buy each song at 99 cents a piece from iTunes. Just basically reselling the same shit over and over and over again that we should have on the radio, local radio. And people like to hear, talk radio. So, just have a DJ, give a guy a job. Let him put on some new stuff. Guy I worked with at the Forge is an incredible DJ. He doesn't like to talk very much because we have to focus on our work so hard. But he could put on all kinds of tunes, whether it was something I had heard, I didn't hear. He could mix his own music. It was great. I know there are a lot of people on the internet that create great music. stuff I want to hear, but I have no access to unless I have to, go out and seek it on the computer. And all these people could have jobs bringing us entertainment. Entertainment. Because now technologically we're advanced enough, life can be easy. Life can be very easy. And we can all be a lot happier. And that's what we need to do, move towards things we all agree on. And I don't know what group it is that says no. I'm trying to find out. I'm just going to go out and ask her, why can't we do this? And, tell me no. Tell me no. Tell me no why. We'll figure it out. And if it makes sense that we can't do it that way, then all right, well, I guess at the end of that discussion, we'll try something else. So that's it for this video tonight. I'm going to catch you guys later. Have a great one.